Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. How's everybody doing on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, let's get this thing together. How y'all doing? Happy Wednesday. Listen, today we are about to get into it. We're about to get into it. It might be a little emotional. It might make people feel a little uncomfortable, but you know how we do around here. I like to make sure that I am being completely honest about this thing because, not enough people in this space are. Let's just be honest about that right now. If you can see me and hear me okay, please give this video a thumbs up. Drop a number one in the comment section. Let me know what we're working with here. I know it just seems like every time I get on here, it's like, girl, fix your hair, right? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. And listen, I want to start this off by asking you something. And I really want you to think about this for a second before you answer the questions that I'm going to ask you. When was the last time you made a decision at work or in a conversation that you had with your boss, or maybe it was in a meeting where you could have spoken up, but you didn't? Because somewhere in the back of your mind, you were thinking about your mortgage, you were thinking about your kids' tuition. You were thinking about the fact that this job is where your health insurance come from. When was the last time you chose to be silent instead of honest because the stakes felt too high? I really want you to think about that. I don't want you to answer this out loud. I don't even want you to put it in the chat. Oftentimes I'm asking you to put this thing in the chat, right? I'm not asking you to put it in the chat today. I'm just asking you to think about it. Just think about that for a second. And I want you to notice how it feels, because here's what I want to talk about in this episode. We spend a lot of time in the personal finance space talking about financial independence in terms of numbers. We talk about it, how much money you need to save. We talk about what percentage you should have in all these different accounts. And we always talk about when you can retire. We talk about the math of it all, right? We make sure that the math is mathing. And let's be clear, the math does matter. But nobody ever talks about the part of this conversation that changes your life before a single number shifts in your spreadsheet. Nobody really talks about what it does to you to know in every single cell of your body that you cannot afford to be honest, that you can't afford to have boundaries, that you can't afford to take up too much space, because the whole thing, your entire financial situation, is sitting on top of one single paycheck from one single person who could change their mind on a random Wednesday. We don't really talk about that part. And that's the part right there that's costing you more than money. That's the part right there that's costing you yourself. Welcome back to another episode of Nick at Noon. Happy Wednesday. My name is Nick Scott. I'm the CEO and founder of Her Income Edit. And today we are talking about the part of financial independence that changes how you move through the world. We're going to talk about why it matters so much more than the number in your bank account. And we're going to be talking about what it takes to finally have something that is underneath you, that supports you, besides a hope and a prayer. And if you've got questions or comments or feedback as we're going through the content, drop it in the comments. I will be going back and forth between my notes and the chat to see if there's anything there, if anybody's feeling like they want to engage with me today. I want you to share this episode with your bestie who has been feeling that financial pressure, but she doesn't have the words to really describe it yet, okay? Go get your notebooks and your pens if you haven't already, because we're about to get into this thing. Let's get into it. So there's something that happens to women who have a single income that doesn't really get talked about that often. And it's not really dramatic. And there's no moment where you wake up and realize it's happening. It's kind of like the humidity on a summer day. It just slowly settles in. And then one morning, you notice that you've been holding your breath for months. You start negotiating with yourself in your head instead of negotiating at the table. Like your boss says something that kind of hits you wrong, and instead of addressing it, you calculate mentally whether you can afford to make waves about it. You think about your mortgage, you think about your car insurance, you think about the fact that you have dependents or aging parents or student loans or all of the above. And the math never comes out in your favor. It never comes out in favor of you being honest, right? So you just swallow it down. And you know, or maybe you notice something at work that you could fix, something that would genuinely save your company money or make a process easier for everybody. But then if you bring this thing up, it feels a little risky, because what if they see you as being difficult? What if they see you? What if the thing that is making you visible, and it's making you visible in a way that's not really safe? What if budget cuts come around and then they remember, oh, yeah, that woman right there, she's the one who spoke up too much. So you don't say anything. You just keep doing your job the way that they want it done. And the thing that could have mattered, it doesn't start to matter anymore, because your financial life is a non-negotiable and your opinion is not. And this is the part about relying on one income that costs more than money. And we don't really talk about it, right? Because this is the part where it costs you your voice, it costs you your agency, it costs you the feeling that your life belongs to you and not the person who signs your paycheck. And here's the crazy thing about this, y'all. You could be great at your job. You can be really, 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 really good at your job. You can be the person that everyone knows that they can count on. You can be the person who stays late. You can be the person who solves all the company's problems. You can be the person who is dependable beyond reason. But here's the thing. None of that matters when your entire financial life is sitting in that one basket, because that dependability is leverage other people are holding against you, whether they mean to hold it against you or not. And you're dependable because you have to be, because walking away isn't an option that you can afford. And I'm saying this out loud, and I'm having this conversation right now today because I feel like a lot of women are experiencing this and calling it something else. I feel like they're calling it stress or burnout or not loving my job anymore. And maybe some of that is true, right? But I believe the root of it is the thing that turns a job into a trap is that you don't have anywhere else to go. And the financial pressure that you're feeling, that's what it does. It turns your career into a cage. And you don't even realize that you've been living in that cage until you've been in it for so long that you forget what it feels not to be in a cage. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down here today? Are y'all feeling what I'm saying? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Listen, I want to switch gears for just a second, because I'm not telling you this so you can just think about it. I'm telling you this because what I'm describing, that feeling of being trapped, it disappears the second you have a second way to make money. And I don't just mean that financially, although clearly we never, ever, ever underestimate or minimize the importance of money in our lives around here. But I mean, it changes how you function as a woman. There's this thing that happens to women when they finally have some sort of income that isn't dependent on staying silent or playing small. And it's almost impossible to describe until you're on the other side of it, but I'm going to try to describe it for you, okay? Because when your financial life isn't resting on one person's approval anymore, something changes literally in your back, in your spine. Like, you can negotiate different when you're not negotiating from a position of desperation. You can literally say no to things that don't serve you. And here's the thing. It is not as an act of rebellion, but it's an act of basic self-respect that you have for your own self. You can speak up in a meeting without running through a mental checklist of whether or not it's safe for you to have an opinion in that meeting. Your identity stops being entirely wrapped up in a job title that somebody else gave you, because you're not building something just for them anymore. You're building something for you also. And that sounds small if you haven't lived it. But the women who have lived it, the ones who went from one income stream to multiple streams of income, they all say the same thing. The money matters 100%. But the shift that you will move through the world, it is everything, y'all. It's not just about the money, because financial independence isn't about independence from work. Because let's be very, very clear about this. You are always going to be working at something. Always, also, and always. Financial independence is independence from desperation. It is the difference between staying because you want to stay and staying because you have to stay. You see the difference there? And that one word, it changes everything about how you show up. It changes what you will tolerate. It changes what you're going to ask for. And it changes what you believe about yourself. When you are not operating from a lens or from a spirit of scarcity, something wakes up in you that has been literally snoozing. You know what they say, when you snooze, you lose. Because when that thing wakes up, you start thinking about what you want instead of just trying to survive what's already happening to you. You start asking yourself what you're worth instead of what you're grateful to have. Woo, come on, somebody. You start looking at your life like it belongs to you, because suddenly it does. Suddenly it does. And if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. I want you to write down, multiple streams of income is not a financial strategy. Multiple streams of income is the difference between the life you're living and the life you're enduring. Somebody drop life in the comments. And here's the other part that nobody talks about when you're going through this shift. You don't have to wait until you're rich to feel it. Like, you don't have to wait until your second income equals your first stream of income. You don't have to wait for some arbitrary number in a bank account to feel like you have options. That's not what this is about. That feeling of possibility, that mental shift that I'm talking about, that I'm describing, it literally starts the second that you know that there's something else holding you up besides hope. Now, I want to tell you what this looked like for me. Now, I'm just, y'all know I don't just talk about theory around here. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I want to tell you what this looked like for me, because it's the only way for me to truly describe how real this is. So, 5 months before my layoff, before I even knew it was coming, I made my first dollars from her income edit. So I had, I sold a few things through her income edit, and it wasn't life-changing money. It wasn't even close to what my salary was, but something changed in me the moment that I knew that money was there. And I didn't realize it until after the layoff, when I was sitting in my office on that Wednesday morning in a Zoom meeting with my former CEO and HR, telling me that my role was being eliminated. In any other version of my life up until that point, that would have been the end. That would have been terror for me. Like that would have torn me apart. And I would have been sitting in uncertainty, and I would have been in months of spiral. Like, I would have been sad and blue, y'all. And let's be clear, it was scary. So don't get me wrong about that, because I had never experienced the layoff before. But I didn't collapse, because I wasn't standing on one foot anymore at that point. I had already built something small, and that small thing turned into what could have been a catastrophe into a quick pivot. It was a quick redirect. It turned me from someone who had to find another job right away to someone who can make a choice about what comes next for me. That's what it did. And I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something about building a second stream of income that goes way beyond money. It is about what happens to your entire physical being when you're not choosing from desperation anymore. Because before those few dollars showed up from her income edit, I was still operating from the assumption that my job at that point was my life plan. Like I had a plan, and that job was part of the plan. My income was in my job. It was my job. My safety and my plan, it really relied on that job. And the way I got to show up as valuable, it was in my job because that was that was my bread and butter. But after that money hit my account, all of that changed, y'all, because suddenly I wasn't just an employee anymore. And here's the thing about it. You have to understand my story. Like, I came from a place of independence and I chose to go back to a 9 to 5. You can learn more about my story at inickscott.com, and you can read all about it. So I chose to go back to what I thought was stability, right? So I went from being an entrepreneur back to being an employee. And guess what? And here's where I am. Okay. So after that money hit my account, all of that changed because I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was a person who was building something again. And it changed how I negotiated. It changed what I would accept and what I wouldn't accept. It changed how I answered when someone asked me to do something that wasn't aligned with where I was headed. And I started to say no to things. I mean, not rudely or unprofessional. I wasn't unprofessional about it, but I was very clear. And I didn't lose my job because of it. But I also didn't care as much if I did because I was building something that was mine. Like, I know what that means. I know what that meant. And that's what financial safety does for you, y'all. And it has nothing to do with the amount of money. And it has everything to do with what happens to a woman when she's no longer one bad decision away from losing everything. I lost my job on a Wednesday. And yes, I had been building her income edit for months quietly. I wasn't making too much noise about it. We didn't have Nick at Noon and all these other mechanisms that I have in place, but I lost my job on a Wednesday. And literally by Monday, I had pivoted this whole thing. Timelines were moved up. I launched my group program. Like, I was building this thing and I had a plan, but when that original plan fell through, I had something else that I could fall back on. I had something else to fall back on. I literally stopped tolerating things. And this can happen for you too. Like, you stop tolerating things that you've been tolerating for years. And it's not because you suddenly get more courageous. It's because the financial fear that was keeping you silent, it finally has somewhere else to go. Your posture changes, y'all. Your voice gets louder. You start negotiating for things you would have never asked for before because you're not asking from a position or from a spirit of scarcity. You're asking from a position of knowing what you're worth. And that happens long before your second stream of income equals your first one. It literally happens the second you prove to yourself that you're capable of making money outside of the system that someone else set up for you. That is what this is about. That is what this is about. Okay? So, up to this point in this conversation, we have been talking about what's wrong and what it costs and what changes when you finally have options, right? And if any of that has resonated with you, or if you see yourself in any of what I've already described, I want you to give this video a thumbs up or just drop a number 1 in the comments. But the part that I haven't talked about, this is the part that trips women up the most before they even start. And that is, they think they don't have anything to sell. So most women, they look at their career, they look at their skills, and they look at the things they're good at, and then they think, oh, you know what? That's just what I do. That's just what I do at work. They think it's not something that somebody would pay for. They think that it's some special skill that only sits outside and it doesn't sit outside their normal job, right? And I want to tell you something, and I want to be very, very clear about what I'm going to say. What I just described, that is bass backwards. Bass backwards. The thing you already know how to do, the thing that you figured out the hard way, the thing that you have navigated through years of experience and practice and mistakes and trial and error, that is exactly what someone else would pay for. I want you to think about what people come to you for, not what you do at work, okay? Because that's probably specifically for that employer, right? I mean, what do people ask you about in your personal life, in their personal lives? What does your coworker pull you aside for when she's dealing with something at work? What does your friend text you about at night when something's not working for her? What does your sister or your cousin or your mom or your sorority sisters, what do they ask you for when they're trying to figure something out? Because that pattern, that is your thing. That is your thing. It's your thing. You've already built it. And it's just been living inside your regular job where nobody's paying you for the value of what you know. And here's the thing that I really want you to hear. You don't need to invent a second income stream from scratch. You need to package something you already have into something that you can sell. And I know that sounds really, really simple, but it changes everything about how you approach this because you're not starting from zero. You're packaging something that's already proven. It's already been tested. It's been built through years of you living your life. And the women who's figured this out, here's the thing. Women who figure this out, they understand that now they have options. So let's talk about some examples here. So the woman who has figured out how to negotiate a raise in corporate environments, she doesn't need to become an expert negotiator because she's already an expert negotiator. She just needs to package that skill for other women who are in corporate environments who are stuck on the thing that she knows how to do. The woman who's navigated several career pivots and figured out how to land on her feet, she doesn't need to become a career coach because she's already a career coach. She just needs to call it what it is and position that thing for other women in the middle of their own career moves. The woman who has managed a team through a restructuring without losing half of her people, who has figured out how to keep people engaged even when everything is changing, that's not just something she did at work. That is expertise, y'all. That is something that women in management positions all over the world are literally losing sleep over right now. Here's what I want you to hear. You are not behind in this. If you feel like you're behind, you are not behind. You've just been giving away for free what people are actively trying to figure out how to pay for. And this is the part about building a second income stream that flips everything on its head because you're not looking for a new skill. You're not looking for some magic niche. Have you ever been told that you need to niche down? You're interested in doing this and you're like, oh, you have to find your niche first. Have you heard that advice? You're not looking for some magic niche that nobody else is doing. You're looking at everything you already know and you're finally taking it seriously. And here's the other thing about this. Most women skip this part. Most women skip this part because they are so convinced that what they do is common sense. They believe that anybody can do it. They believe that it doesn't feel special enough to charge for. But here's the thing. Y'all have heard it before. Common sense ain't common. It's just common to you because you've lived it, because you've already resolved it. And you've been doing this thing like the back of your hand, like second nature for years. And when you've been through something and come out on the other side, when you've solved something that's been keeping other people up at night, that is not common sense. That is knowledge that you earned. And knowledge that you earned is the only thing worth buying in the first place. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I see the love on YouTube. Now, I want to take a step back for a second because I don't want us to lose the bigger picture here. Everything that we've talked about so far, the posture shift, the options, independence from desperation, all of that is riding on one assumption. And that is that you build a second stream of income, right? And I watch a lot of women get to this point in the conversation and they understand why this matters. They understand and they can see themselves doing this thing. And they're starting to think that maybe this could actually work for them. But then, and I have seen this happen time and time again, then they don't do anything with it. And it's not because they don't want to do anything, it's because they don't know where to start. Like they understand the concept and they're not skeptical about whether or not this is possible. They're just standing at the beginning of something that looks, for lack of a better analogy, it just looks impossibly big. It looks just too big, right? And I know this because I have been there. I have spent months knowing I needed to build something outside of my job. I knew it. I intellectually understood it. I understood the stakes and I still didn't move. I didn't make a move. And it's because I didn't know the steps. I knew when I got into this a few years ago, I knew I should have been a coach, but I didn't know what to coach on. I didn't even know how to structure it. I didn't know what to charge. I didn't know where to find my first clients. I didn't know how to even talk about something so big without sounding like I was claiming skills that I didn't feel like I had earned yet. And it wasn't because that I lacked confidence or skill or desire, y'all. It was literally the fact that I didn't have a structure. And structure in this is everything because you can be the most talented, most capable woman in the room and still never make a move on anything because you're looking at the whole mountain instead of the next 5 steps, instead of the first 5 steps. And that's exactly why so many women cycle through the same loop. They spinning, right? They understand why they need something to support them. They know that they need another option. They know they have skills to offer, but they don't know how to turn that into something that makes money. And so they stay spinning. They stay in that wheel. They stay in research mode forever. Or then, they think they're doing themselves a favor by buying the next course or listening to another podcast, hoping that the next podcast episode they listen to will finally give them the piece that they feel like they're missing. Here's the thing. You don't have a missing piece. You are not missing skills. You're missing the structure. And here's what I mean by that. Most women who want to build a coaching income, they think the hard part is learning how to coach better or figuring out their perfect niche or building an audience first or getting certified in something. And all of that feels like a barrier. It feels like an obstacle. It feels like something that you have to overcome. So that is the part where most women focus their time. But that is not what determines whether or not coaching becomes income or stays a nice idea you tell people about at parties. What determines it is whether or not you can take the messiness of what you know, that all that information, the combination of skills and experience and perspective that makes you uniquely you, and frame it and position it in a way that someone else can see themselves buying. And it's not because they need a coach, because they might already have a coach. but because the transformation you're offering is very specific to them, because you're speaking directly to the exact problem that they have, not the general category of problems that they might have someday, one of these days, right? And again, all of that sounds simple until you try to do it. And then you realize it's an entire skill that matters. And that is the difference right there between a coaching offer that people scroll past and a coaching offer that people actually buy. Because one of them is built on assumption about what you think people need. And the other is built on understanding what people are already desperate to solve. You see the difference there? And here's the thing that most people miss. The second type that I just described, that type of coaching offer doesn't require you to be more credentialed. It doesn't require you to be more experienced. It doesn't even require you to be more polished. It just requires you to be specific instead of general. Specific beats impressive every single time. Somebody drop specific in the comments. So I want to bring this back to why we're even having this conversation in the first place. Because the feeling we started with, do you remember at the top of this conversation? And if you're just joining live, I encourage you to catch this on replay on my YouTube channel. But that feeling that we started with, the heaviness of knowing you can't afford to speak up, that you can't afford to be yourself, it costs you something. It costs you peace. It costs you presence in your own life. It costs you yourself. And the only way through to get through that feeling is to start creating something that gives you options. You don't need to become a different person or to suddenly find courage you don't have, but to change the circumstances that desperation isn't the thing making your decisions for you anymore. That's where it starts. It starts by changing everything about how you function. But it only works if you do something. And doing something requires taking what you already know and turning it into something that somebody else will pay for. And that is the step where most women get stuck, because they're trying to figure out what niche to pick or how to position themselves or what offer to create. And they're doing it all at once. And it feels like too much, because it is. But what if you didn't have to figure all this out at once? What if you had a simple structure that walked you through taking the exact skill that people are already asking you about, packaging it into an offer that is built around a specific transformation, and then positioning that thing in a way that stops being about trying to convince someone and starts being about inviting the people who already need what it is that you're offering? What if the thing you're missing isn't another idea or another credential or another year of experience? What if it's just the framework that turns what you already know into actual, real, tangible income? Because here's what I know after building her income edit and watching women move from I know I need something to I have a second stream of income. The ones who make it aren't the ones who wait until they feel ready. They're the ones who put their offer in front of people while it is still rough around the edges. They're the ones who stop perfecting, and they're the ones that start testing. They're the ones who take action before the fear is gone, which means they're taking action while the fear is still there. They are moving while they feel the fear. The ones who make it, they're just moving anyway. And that's hard. I'm not going to say that it's easy. It's hard. It's really hard. It's way harder than reading another article about passive income or waiting for the day when you suddenly feel confident enough to charge for something you already know how to do. But it's the only thing that works. It is the only thing that works, because you can have all the confidence in the world and still not move if you don't know what the first step is. And you could be terrified and still move if you have a clear structure telling you exactly what to do next. Am I right? Am I right? And I'm bringing this up because I built something for this exact specific moment. This is built for the woman who knows she needs something underneath her, something else to hold her up. She knows that she needs options. This is for the woman who knows her skills are worth something, but she's also staring at a blank page with no idea how to turn her skills into income. The thing I'm talking about is 2K in 2 hours. And here's what it is not. It is not a course that takes months for you to work through. It is not a coaching program where you're waiting around for someone to respond to your emails. I have that too, but that's not what this is. What it is a micro course, and it walks you through taking the exact skill that's inside you, and it's inside of what you already know, and you will learn how to package that skill into a coaching offer. You'll learn how to position it in a way that your ideal client cannot help but to see it. And the best part about this is that you will do this in just 2 hours of work where you answer the questions that matter. That right there is the structure. And that is the difference between a coaching offer that looks good and one that converts. And I'm telling you about it because everything we talked about today, because of the independence that we talked about, because of the posture shift, because of the options, all of it starts with this one decision. And if you are just joining and you're like, what the heck is she talking about? Posture shifts and independence. I encourage you to watch the replay of this live stream on my YouTube channel. And the thing about this decision, that's what is going to take what you know and turn it into something that pays you. And it doesn't take a year. It doesn't take a whole nother year. It doesn't take a whole nother credential. It doesn't take a whole nother accolade. It doesn't take a whole nother achievement. It literally takes 2 hours of work and the willingness to be specific instead of general. So here is the thing about all this. The thing you're feeling, the heaviness of knowing that you can't afford to speak up, that is not a character flaw. That's a financial reality, and financial realities can change, but they don't change overnight or without effort, but they can change. And the women who change their financial reality are the ones who look at everything they already know, everything they've already figured out, everything they've already survived, and they finally start to take all of that seriously. They stop thinking about all of that as something that they just do. Girl, I just do that. That's just what I do. And they start thinking about it as something that people will pay them to solve. And the moment that mindset shift happens, things start changing for you. Again, I'm talking about your posture, your voice, the things that you tolerate, the things that you will and will not ask for, how you see yourself, all of it changes. You go from someone who is trapped in a job because the financial fear is just too big to walk away from. And you just automatically become a person who's choosing how she spends her time because she's built something else to support her. And I'm not talking about a side hustle. I'm not talking about making extra money just for fun. I'm talking about freedom, safety. I'm talking about getting your life back here. And here's the thing. You don't have to figure this out alone. You don't have to stay in research mode trying to piece all this together. You don't have to wait for the day when you suddenly feel like you're confident enough. You just have to be willing to take what you already have and structure it in a way that works for you, not against you. And if anything in this episode resonated with you, if you're sitting here thinking about something that you've been waiting on, if you're thinking about something that has been tucked inside everything you do, but you've never taken it seriously as something you can sell, I want you to go check out 2K in 2 hours over on my website. You can go to my website at herincomeedit.com/2K. It is also linked down in the description, because at the end of the day, waiting for another job to secure your life, that is a trap. That is a cage. but building something on your own, something that creates real security and options for you, something that takes your skills seriously, something that that supports you if something goes awry with the original plan. That right there is the way that you break out. That's how you get up out of this. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I want to just take a moment to say thanks to each and every one of you that popped in and out of today's live. You did not go unnoticed. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of your time with me today. My name is Nick Scott. This is another episode of Nick at Noon. I am here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Mountain Time. I appreciate the love that y'all show me. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube and turn your notifications on so you don't miss a beat. If you have any questions as you're watching the replay of this, you can leave them in the comments, or you can send me an email. You can send me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn, and I will make sure that I get those questions, comments, or feedback addressed as they come in. If you want to learn more about 2K in 2 hours, go visit my website at herincomeedit.com/2K, or you can just click the link down in the description. I appreciate all of you, and I will see y'all on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.